Oh my god, Phuket isn't just blue beaches and fancy resorts. There are hidden rules and street rituals that will literally stop you in your tracks. Some things you do without thinking, like whistling at night or lifting your camera in the wrong spot, can instantly change the way an entire neighborhood looks at you. And there's a deep Chinese cultural layer here that's so strong, Phuket can feel nothing like the Thailand you thought you knew. Stay till the end, because these 15 details will make you see Phuket as a completely different world. Number 15. The Phuket Street Piercing Ritual. Why do locals treat it like a normal day at the market? At certain times of the year, especially during major festivals of Phuket's Chinese community, streets that are usually just part of everyday life suddenly become the setting for a deeply personal ritual carried out in full public view. There's no stage, no barriers, no special viewing area. It happens right in the middle of the road, where people still go to work, run errands, and take their kids to school like it's any other day. This ritual is rooted in Chinese folk beliefs that have lived in Phuket for generations. For the community, it's not meant to impress anyone or put on a show. It's a disciplined spiritual practice. Those who take part believe that choosing to endure a physical test is a way to show commitment, purification, and responsibility toward the people around them. What stands out is how locals react to it. There's no panic, no huge crowds, no over-the-top curiosity. Many people glance for a second, then continue with whatever they were doing. That calm isn't coldness, it comes from familiarity. They've grown up with the ritual as part of social life, not as something separate from it. For visitors, the shock isn't only the visuals, it's the total absence of explanation. No information board, no guide, no warning. The ritual exists on its own terms, without needing outsiders to understand it right away. That forces you to adjust your approach, from judging to simply observing. The cultural value of this ritual is that it isn't separated from modern life. In Phuket, tradition isn't locked inside a museum or limited to a festival stage. It keeps moving within the city's daily rhythm. That parallel reality is what makes the ritual such a powerful cultural expression, challenging, unforgettable, and quietly LA. Number 14. Some days Phuket suddenly feels different. An entire neighborhood goes quiet because of an unspoken rule. There are days when a neighborhood in Phuket can change its atmosphere in a way you can actually feel. The volume drops. Entertainment slows down. Conversations become more measured. There's no official announcement, no signs, no one stepping out to remind people. Yet the shift happens almost all at once. This phenomenon is tied to festival cycles and periods of observance within local spiritual life, especially in the Chinese community. These unspoken rules aren't written down. They're passed through families and everyday habits. Kids grow up in that environment and learn to watch, to sense the moment, and to adjust without needing a long explanation. Locals don't see this change as restrictive or a loss of freedom. They see it as shared responsibility, a way to keep harmony in the living space. Lowering noise, avoiding arguments, even adjusting personal routines is understood as something done for the community, not something forced on anyone. Visitors often sense the difference but can't pinpoint why. The quiet can feel almost unsettling, especially if you're used to Phuket's lively image, and that wordless silence becomes a very specific cultural experience, one that you don't find on tourist maps. The value here is the community's ability to regulate itself without coercion. In a crowded tourist city, maintaining order through quiet agreement shows the strength of inherited cultural values, where each person knows their own boundaries and keeps them, not because they have to, but because that's how the place stays balanced. Number 13. A tiny house for spirits sits right by the front door. Why is the spirit house treated like the prime spot? Walking through residential areas, shops, and hotels in Phuket, you'll easily spot small shrine-like houses set right out front. They're often placed in open air, catching sunlight, kept clean, and carefully maintained. In some cases, their location looks even better than the entrance meant for people. The spirit house is a familiar part of spiritual life in Phuket. It reflects the belief that every piece of land has an unseen presence that deserves respect. Placing the spirit house in a good position isn't about giving it special treatment for show. It's about keeping balance between people and the space they live in. Locals don't see the spirit house as decoration or as a superstitious accessory. For them, it's part of the home's structure and daily routine. Care, fresh offerings, and cleanliness are handled regularly, without drama, without performance, but also without neglect. What surprises many visitors is the philosophy behind the layout. In places where humans are treated as the absolute center, this can feel unusual. In Phuket, harmony is prioritized over personal convenience. The entrance can be modest, but the spirit house must be positioned correctly, aligned properly, and treated with consistency. The deeper value of this practice is how it shapes the relationship between people and their environment. The spirit house isn't only a symbol of belief. It's a reminder that living space is something shared, not something owned in a one-sided way. That mindset, quietly built into architecture and routine, is part of what makes Phuket feel culturally distinct. Number 12. Phuket isn't the Thailand you expect. The Chinese cultural layer here is so strong it can feel shocking. If you only see Phuket through beaches and tourist life, it's easy to assume this is a typical Thai island. But once you step deeper into the old town and into the rhythm of local family life, you meet a different Phuket. The Chinese cultural layer is so thick it can feel like you're standing in a coastal city shaped by a migration story, not a purely Thai tropical paradise. The Chinese settlement history in Phuket is tied to trade, tin mining, and maritime routes. Many families have lived here for generations, forming a community that both integrated and kept its own ways. You can see it in shophouse architecture, in temples and shrines, in how holidays are organized, and in everyday social rules that still carry a strong family lineage tone. What's special is that this identity isn't put on display for visitors. It runs naturally as part of daily life. You'll see people speaking Thai on the street, then at home keeping Chinese-rooted routines in worship, in respect for hierarchy, and in the way family honor is understood. Some households still carry traces of older dialects, forms of address, and food habits that point back to Fujian, Teochew, or Cantonese roots. Locals usually don't see this as a loose mix. For them, it's Phuket's identity. An identity formed by layers of history stacked on top of each other without canceling each other out. That's why outsiders sometimes feel confused. How can a Thai island have festival rhythms, symbols, and community organization that feel so distinctly Chinese? The value of Phuket lies in this layered reality. It shows that culture doesn't stand still. It's shaped by movement, survival, and long-term adaptation. Phuket isn't only a place to visit. It's a place to watch how a community builds a local identity inside the larger current of a nation and the wider world. Number 11. The untold side of Phuket. Women working in bars and clubs can still be accepted by their families as a normal job. In a major tourist destination like Phuket, the entertainment service industry exists alongside hotels, restaurants, and boat tours. Outsiders often carry strong assumptions when they hear about bar and club work, especially when women are the workers. But the social reality in Phuket has a more practical, more complicated view that surprises many visitors. Here, some families see this work as service labor within the tourism economy. They may not celebrate it, but they also don't automatically label it shameful. The standard of judgment sometimes isn't the job title. It's whether the person stays responsible to the family, lives steadily, avoids trouble, and knows how to protect themselves. Economic context matters. Tourism brings opportunity, but it also pushes living costs up. For some, income from jobs connected to international visitors can be higher than other options. In that situation, families often choose a middle path. They value contribution, consistency, and practicality more than rigid moral templates. Locals also draw a line between the job itself and the story outsiders imagine. Many people in entertainment service keep clear boundaries, set goals, build savings plans, send money home, or support younger relatives in school. In the family's eyes, it's a way of making a living in a tourism environment, not something that defines a person's entire worth. The cultural value of this story is how society adjusts its standards to survive. Phuket shows a kind of soft realism, where the community tries to preserve face, negotiate with the economy, and protect its own people in its own way. If you look at Phuket only through the lens of judgment, you miss the most important part: how locals balance tradition, daily needs, and the pressure of a changing world. Number 10. One wrong photo and the air turns cold. Phuket's unspoken taboos with no warning signs. In Phuket, not every cultural boundary is written down. There are places where you won't see a no-photo sign, yet a small action like raising your camera, blocking a passage, or pointing into a sensitive area can change the atmosphere instantly. The shock for outsiders often comes from the feeling of not even knowing what you did wrong. These unspoken rules come from community habits and from the way locals protect sacred space, private space, and general peace. Some areas tied to shrines or rituals carry invisible standards. Walk softly, speak quietly, avoid unnecessary attention. If you act like you're at a check-in spot, you may accidentally turn the place into a backdrop, while locals see it as a space that requires restraint. What's interesting is that the reaction is usually not loud. Phuket people rarely confront strangers directly. They might say nothing, but their eyes change, their service becomes cooler, their warmth fades. You can still stand there, still get the picture, but it feels like you crossed an invisible line. For many visitors, it's a chilling social experience, not a supernatural one. Locals often see these unspoken rules as a form of politeness. They believe someone sensitive will notice and adjust. If someone doesn't notice, it's better not to say it bluntly and create conflict. That approach helps the community keep harmony in a place with constant foot traffic and constant cultural collisions. The value of this story is the lesson in observation. Phuket reminds you that travel isn't only about seeing and recording. It's about knowing how to be present in the right way. When you slow down, watch the room, and match the local rhythm, you make fewer mistakes and you receive more in return. Trust, friendliness, and the feeling that you've stepped into a real cultural layer, not a version built only for visitors. Number 9. Don't whistle at night in Phuket. Locals believe you're calling something you shouldn't. For many people, whistling is just a mindless habit. But in Phuket, especially in quiet neighborhoods or near the sea, it can get you a quick warning from locals. What's interesting is how serious the reaction can be. It's not playful teasing, and visitors are often surprised by how sensitive people are to such a small detail. This belief comes from a layer of folk thinking connected to nighttime, quiet spaces, and the idea of keeping sound order. In a community that lives close to the sea, night has its own rhythm. A strange sound can feel like it disrupts the calm, or at the very least, disrespects neighbors. So even if different families explain it in different ways, the shared result is simple. People avoid whistling after dark. Locals teach children early, don't whistle at night, don't make calling sounds, don't mess around in empty lanes. You might see an adult remind someone very gently, but with a firm look that says this is something everyone should know. That seriousness can look like superstition from the outside, but if you pay attention, it also functions as a social rule about quietness and self-control. The value here is how a folk idea becomes a behavioral standard. It helps the community keep a sense of safety and order, especially in a place where tourists flow in and out non-stop. When everything changes fast, small rules like this become a way locals preserve their way of life. For visitors, the night whistling story is a reminder of cultural humility. You don't have to believe it to respect it. You just need to understand that here, a small sound can carry a big meaning. And sometimes, blending in isn't about big gestures. It's about pausing before a habit that seems harmless in your world, but isn't in theirs. Number 8. Offerings in Phuket feel surprisingly everyday: red soda and bottled tea. And why it makes sense once you get it. One of the most surprising things in Phuket is how people make offerings. Many assume offerings must be elaborate, formal, and strictly correct according to a fixed set of rules. But in Phuket, you'll see a very everyday approach: bottled tea, red soda, packaged sweets, fruit grabbed quickly from the market, sometimes the simplest, most familiar items. This approach comes from a belief in sincerity and fit with real life. For many families, what matters isn't expensive presentation. It's consistency, cleanliness, and a respectful attitude. Offerings feel everyday because they come straight from the rhythm of daily living. When a community ties spiritual practice tightly to ordinary routine, the offerings follow that same logic. Locals usually don't see this as less respectful. If anything, they see it as keeping belief close to people. Offerings aren't meant to show off. They maintain a symbolic relationship between the household and the spiritual world as locals understand it. That's why you'll often see offerings done quickly, neatly, and quietly, like a morning habit before opening a shop for the day. What makes it memorable is the flexibility. There's no forced checklist. Each household adjusts to its own context. Some offer what they consider cooling or soothing. Some choose items linked to good fortune in Chinese tradition. Some keep it simple with clean water and flowers. That flexibility signals a living belief system, not something frozen in a rigid box. For visitors, the everyday nature of offerings is a key to understanding Phuket. It shows that belief here isn't separated from life like a decorative layer. It sits inside the rhythm of opening doors, selling goods, feeding family, and moving through the day. And because it's that close to real life, it becomes a cultural signature that sticks with you longer than anything that's only beautiful for photos. Number 7. In many Chinese-rooted Phuket families, women keep the cash and make money decisions, and men see it as totally normal. In many Chinese-rooted families in Phuket, women often handle the household finances. Outsiders can find this surprising because it goes against the familiar image of men controlling money. But in Phuket, especially in families running small businesses, this structure is seen as a stabilizing system, almost a standard for order and discipline. The background is tied to the community's long history of survival through trade and daily commerce. Many families are connected to shop life, markets, services, or work that depends on steady cash flow every day. In that environment, the person who keeps the cash isn't just holding money, they're holding the household's operating rhythm. Women are often trusted for careful attention to detail, long-term planning, and the ability to keep priorities clear. Locals don't treat this as a power struggle or a reversal meant to prove a point. They see it as division of roles based on strength. Men may handle outward-facing work, talk with customers, and decide business direction. But budgeting, saving, and long-range planning are often placed in the hands of the woman at home. What stands out is how naturally men accept it, because the shared goal is stability and family honor. The cultural value of this story is the model of flexibility. Instead of sticking to a rigid rule about who must lead, the structure runs on trust and effectiveness. It also reflects a practical mindset that values substance over appearance. Whoever keeps the family steady gains real weight in decision-making, regardless of gender. For visitors, this detail offers a deeper way to read Phuket life. Behind the tourist energy, families still operate on traditional commerce logic, and small mechanisms like money management create a durable kind of stability, helping households stay grounded through seasonal tourism swings, shifting prices, and constant change. Number 6. Don't dig into someone's family too early in Phuket. Why an innocent question can feel impolite. In Phuket, especially in tightly connected communities, family isn't always an open topic in a first conversation. Many visitors start chatting with questions that seem harmless. What does your family do? What do your parents do? Who do you live with? But in Phuket, these questions can cross a private line sooner than you expect. This caution comes from a society that values family honor and discretion. Family is not just a place you live. It's a network of relationships, responsibilities, history, and social position. Locals often prefer to build trust before sharing details that could invite judgment or gossip. In a tourist environment where strangers come and go constantly, that protective instinct becomes even stronger. Phuket people also tend to communicate at a slower pace. They want to sense who you are before opening their own story. Keeping things private doesn't mean they're cold. It's a way to keep social safety for themselves and their household. Once the relationship feels real, they can become very open and warmly hospitable. But if you start by going deep too fast, you may get short answers, a polite smile, and a quick topic change. The value of this detail is a lesson in context-based politeness. In some places, asking about family shows care. In Phuket, showing care can start with lighter topics, your current work, food, weather, or your travel experience. When you respect their rhythm, you get accepted more naturally. Number 5. Locals quietly avoid certain beaches at certain times. No sign, no ban, just a shared habit. Some beaches in Phuket have time windows when locals simply do not show up much, even though it isn't a restricted hour or a forbidden zone. Visitors still swim, take photos, and enjoy themselves. But if you pay attention, locals often choose a different time or take a different route, as if they're respecting a rhythm the space carries. This habit is often linked to long-lived experience with the sea. Locals understand currents, winds, tides, and how weather moods shift by season. In a place where the sea is both tourist scenery and a real living environment, small choices like when to go are deeply practical. It can be about safety, convenience, or just patterns learned over generations. Alongside the environmental side, beaches can also carry cultural meaning. The sea isn't only a playground, it's a space that requires restraint. There are moments when locals prefer the shoreline to stay calm, not too loud. Visitors rarely notice this because they arrive in vacation mode, while locals arrive in a live-with-nature mindset. What's special is that locals don't enforce this habit on others. They don't ask you to follow it, they simply adjust themselves. That self-adjustment creates the feeling that Phuket has soft rules, where the community keeps its rhythm through understanding rather than prohibition. The value of this story is how it deepens the way you see the sea. In exploration travel content, the beach isn't only a pretty view. The sea is a living presence with timing, with moments that are favorable and moments that require caution. When you start watching the sea the way locals do, Phuket changes. You don't just go to the beach, you read the beach. and that shift makes the trip more memorable than any single photo. Number 4. Saying no too directly in Phuket can break the vibe, the soft refusal style visitors often get wrong. In daily Phuket interactions, what matters isn't only what you say, but how you say it to keep the mood smooth. A blunt refusal like "no, I don't want to" can feel cold or cutting, even if you don't mean it that way. Visitors rarely intend harm, but cultural difference can turn small moments like being offered food, a drink, or an activity into something awkward. This communication style comes from a strong value of avoiding direct confrontation. Phuket is shaped by Thai cultural influence, where saving face, keeping the atmosphere pleasant, and not putting others in an uncomfortable spot is important. In a tourist setting, soft communication also helps reduce friction between locals and the constant flow of outsiders. Locals often refuse in a gentle loop, a smile, a thank you, a quick excuse, or a maybe next time. The key is not slamming the conversational door shut. Even if you truly have no intention to join, a soft refusal keeps the relationship in a good state. The value of this detail is that it reflects a harmony-first philosophy. Not everyone agrees with indirect speech, but in this local context, it works like social lubricant. It helps short-term relationships run smoothly, prevents misunderstandings, and preserves friendliness in a crowded environment. For visitors or cultural content creators, this is a useful cultural skill. It doesn't just help you avoid social slips, it can open deeper access. When you refuse in a locally respectful way, people read you as considerate, and once that respect is there, more interesting stories often appear naturally, without you having to push for them. Number 3. In Phuket, words carry weight. One careless sentence can sour the whole day. In Phuket, words carry weight, and people treat language like something you handle with care, not something you throw around. In many households, speech isn't just communication, it's part of how you keep the day steady. That's why you'll notice locals avoiding heavy negative statements, avoiding harsh jokes at the wrong moment, and even steering away from bad-sounding words right before work begins. From the outside, it can look like superstition. But inside the local social context, it also works as a cultural rule of caution and emotional management. The background comes from a mix of folk belief and everyday ethics. In many Asian cultures, words are seen as shaping mood and direction. Say something upbeat, you set a lighter tone. Say something dark or overly negative, and it can spread tension fast. In places where people live close together and relationships overlap, emotions travel quickly. So controlling language becomes a way to protect shared calm, not just your own. Locals often speak less, but they pay attention to tone. You might hear someone soften a message rather than say it bluntly, or choose a neutral phrase instead of a sharp one. People read your sensitivity through word choice and whether you make others uncomfortable. In a small business setting, like a family shop or a local service stall, atmosphere has real value. A good mood can mean smoother cooperation, more patience with customers, and better relationships with neighbors. A tense mood can do the opposite. What makes this memorable is how language becomes part of daily discipline. Not out of fear, but out of a belief that careful speech helps keep the mind steady and prevents unnecessary trouble. Before opening a shop, before starting a boat trip, before a family meal, many people prefer to keep the air light. It's less about denying reality and more about choosing not to invite stress into the room. For visitors, the lesson isn't never say anything negative, it's to notice the timing and the vibe. If you complain loudly, joke too harshly, or drop a blunt comment in a quiet setting, you may not get confronted, but you'll feel the shift. Smiles tighten, replies get shorter, the warmth fades a little. That change is the cultural signal. You crossed a soft line. In a tourism-heavy place where life moves fast and unpredictability is normal, this approach to speech becomes a practical strength. It helps people stay calm, keep harmony, and move through the day with fewer unnecessary sparks. Once you understand that words here are treated as weighty, you start speaking a little slower, choosing phrases a little more gently, and listening more. And that small adjustment can open the door to a deeper, more respectful experience of Phuket. Number 2. Older women often set the rules of worship space at home, and the whole family follows. In many Phuket families, especially in Chinese-rooted or Chinese-Thai households, older women often decide how the worship space is arranged. That includes where the altar goes, how offerings are placed, when rituals are done, and small household rules that younger people may not immediately understand. Outsiders can find it surprising that an older woman holds such strong influence, but in the local context, it's a familiar structure. This role is tied to the idea of someone keeping the family fire. Older women are seen as people who know the household ways, understand inherited routines, know the timing of observances, and remember what should be avoided. The worship space isn't only a spot for offerings, it's the symbolic center of the household, where generations connect and where the family expresses commitment to keeping its own order. Locals usually don't describe this as imposed authority, they see it as inherited experience. Younger people may be modern in work and mindset, but once they enter the worship space, they tend to listen. It's respect for someone who has lived long enough to understand community rules. In many households, arguing about worship isn't just debating right or wrong. It's a clash about household order, something that can damage harmony. The cultural value of this story is that it shows Phuket preserving traditional family structure with a local twist. Women's roles here are not only caretaking, they shape the symbolic order of the home. This reflects the overlap of Chinese lineage-minded tradition and Thai harmony-minded social environment. For cultural documentation, it's a clear example of how spiritual life is woven into family structure, carried by people who hold community memory. Number 1. I'm Phuket First, a local identity so strong it can make visitors feel like outsiders. Many people in Phuket carry a clear sense of belonging. If you talk long enough, you'll hear a familiar idea. They called themselves Phuket people before attaching broader labels. This isn't separation from the country. It's emphasis that Phuket has its own identity, shaped by history, trade, migration, and the rhythm of island life. This identity is tied to geography and social history. Phuket is an island, which often means community life develops with stronger self-organization. It's also an old trading place where different groups met and formed a multi-layered society. When a community has enough historical depth, local identity becomes an anchor, a way to define yourself in a place where people constantly arrive and leave. Locals express this identity not through slogans, but through how they live. You can feel it in their confidence in routine, in the soft rules they keep in conversation, and in how they separate what belongs to the island from what is only surface tourism. Visitors sometimes feel like outsiders, not because they're rejected, but because they haven't yet learned the local rhythm and relationship networks. The value of this story is stability inside change. Phuket is international, shifting with seasons, economics, and trends. But local identity keeps a steady spine. It prevents Phuket from dissolving into just another tourist island that looks like every other tourist island. One more layer makes this even clearer. Local identity in Phuket often shows up in the way people talk about home and outsiders without ever saying it harshly. You'll hear small distinctions in everyday speech: which beach is for locals, which festival is ours, which food stalls are the real taste, and which areas feel like they belong to the tourist economy. It's not about exclusion, it's about recognizing layers. Many residents have grown up watching Phuket transform quickly, seeing neighborhoods change with each new wave of development, and feeling the pressure of a global destination on a small island's daily life. That experience creates a quiet protective instinct, a desire to hold on to what still feels authentic and familiar. At the same time, it also breeds a kind of pride that's not loud but persistent. People support local networks, keep family ties strong, and rely on community trust in ways visitors don't immediately notice. If you're a traveler, you can sense it when you stop trying to consume Phuket and instead move with it. You eat where the locals eat, you speak softer, you learn the timing of the day, and suddenly doors open, not because you paid for access, but because you showed respect. That's when the phrase Phuket people stops sounding like a label and starts sounding like a living community, one that absorbs change without losing its core. So that's our ride through 15 shocking, hidden cultural quirks and unspoken rules in Phuket, proving this island is way more than just pretty beaches. If this video gave you a fresh perspective, hit like to support the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next deep dive. Drop a comment and tell me which one surprised you the most, or what place you want us to explore next. See you in the next video.